Morning.
Recorded live.
Okay, we're live on another Talk Shoe broadcast. This message today is entitled Walking on Serpents and Trampling on Dragons. For our Polish friends, the message will be in Polish, published on our website, and be deliverable in a booklet form, small article form, for those who are interested afterwards. But this message will be in English. We have our King James Bibles and our Polish Bibles here at the assembly today. And I think this is going to be a very encouraging and a very good one. So shall we begin with the first Bible verses from Isaiah chapter 27, verse 1. Isaiah chapter 27, verse 1. Yes. In that day, Yahweh, with his sore and great and strong sword, shall punish the leviathan, the piercing serpent, even the leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. That is our opening text for today. I know this opens up many questions, but the main purpose of this message is where Jesus has told us we will trample serpents if we believe in him. And as we read today in the opening psalm, Psalm 91, you will walk on serpents, and you will tread, or you will crush dragons. Those are two creatures that people don't talk about very much. But today we're going to get to the mystery. What is these things? It says, if you believe, you're going to walk on serpents. Yes? I think it's a very interesting topic, and I think everyone will have more. I can hear feedback. Maybe if we can turn down the volume a little bit on the speaker, that would be great. Thank you. Yeah. So that's one of the comments Jesus had said. He had also said that if you're bitten by any snakes, it won't harm you. So he says you might be bitten, but it won't kill you. You might say, ouch. As I recall, after a shipwreck, it says Paul the Apostle was bitten by a snake, and he pulled it off and threw it into the fire. And then everyone said, wow, we believe that God is true because you said this would happen, and he wasn't harmed by the snake. But that is a very interesting topic, because why would Jesus say, if serpents are going to bite you, that you don't die? Well, that's an interesting topic, because in those regions that they were living in at those times, a lot of those regions had no snakes or no poisonous snakes. So if they bite you, you just say, ouch. So not like you're going to die. But we're going to get in more the biblical warfare, because the Bible says we're in a war against the dragons and against the serpents. So I think it's a very intriguing topic. It might blow your mind. But actually, it's very basic to the Bible, where it says that even the first promise of the Messiah, Eve, it says the seed of the woman would bruise her heel on the head of the serpent, right? There's many strange cults and many strange organizations who have said, and faith healers, and they would say very strange things like bringing snakes and letting them bite them and things, and they say, oh, see, I have the anointing because the snake bites. They'll like 5 snakes, and put them, and it's just very, very stupid, I think, actually, because some of those people die afterwards. Because God doesn't want us to be a circus. God doesn't want us to be just trying to show miracles to everyone. And Jesus said, well, the Pharisees came to Jesus and they said, show us a sign so then we will believe. Show us some miracles. And what did he say? He said, a wicked and corrupt generation looks for a sign. But he says, I will only give this generation this sign of Jonas, where 3 days and 3 nights the Son of Man will be in the heart of the earth, like Jonas was in the whale. And so it's been an interesting topic. There's many cultures who have talked about these things. There's many historical teachings throughout the ages that have continued to be intrigued by this topic, and a lot of people have not unraveled this mystery and have not shown it. But we're going to go through the Bible. You can just make your own conclusion. We're going to get into the Greek and Hebrew words. But I'm afraid, frankly, some of this might just blow your mind if you're only used to going to a normal evangelical where they only talk about not so deep topics. But this is a very encouraging topic and is very also central to encouraging people to be faithful and to understand what God is talking about. Remember, he said, every word is profitable for doctrine. And if we don't know why something's in there, then we missed something, because it says we live by every word of God, not by bread alone, but by every word. So let's learn what his word has to say about serpents and dragons. Does that sound interesting? I think it's a very interesting topic, because the word dragon shows up in the Bible many, many times. And the interesting point is that it says you will walk on snakes, but dragons you will trample. You will hit the dragons. You will fight the dragons, not just walk on them. But it says snakes, you're going to just walk on them. Yeah? Serpents, you're going to fight them, it says, and everything else. So God said it. We read it today in Psalms 91 in our opening song. So why does it say? Why? We have to learn it. In the Greek, in the Hebrew, we see why. We see why. What's the difference between the two? But this study won't go into everything, because this is presenting the word on the topic of the main understanding of serpents. Okay, and the main Bible verses that talk about it. Okay, and I want to turn to Mark chapter 16, verse 17 and 18. Mark 16, verses 17 and 18. And it says, and these signs shall follow them that believe in my name. They shall cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents. And if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. Those are some nice promises. Those are some nice signs. Are they not? You'll find in the Bible there's 2 different kinds of snakes. There's serpents and there's snakes. In Hebrew, the snakes are just regular snakes. Serpents, it says, remember, a serpent was talking to Eve in the garden. He speaks. He's not just a little snake on the ground, but he was talking to Eve. And he said some things to Eve. And some people believe because the devil is called the dragon in the Bible. So dragons are more this kind, where it's not talking about snakes. Yes, they're real. They're in the Bible, so they must be real. But some people say it's only a legend, because they have these legends in every country in the whole world. They talk that, oh yes, 1,000 years ago there was a dragon, or something like this. Yes. So, but we see in the Bible there's two kinds. There's snakes and serpents. And I want to demonstrate what the main understanding is here. The medical symbols. A lot of people know about these serpents. I'm showing a display of the graphics of the serpents that are on the medical shields, on the ambulances, on the hospitals, on medical pill boxes, and those kind of things. And so, but where did that come from? This symbol came from Moses in the wilderness. God told Moses to raise this up in the wilderness. And it says that Jesus will be raised up on the cross the same way that the serpent was raised in the wilderness. And it says, basically, in the Bible, in the King James Version, I don't know what it says in the Polish, but it says fiery serpents went through and killed much of the people in Israel. Fiery serpents. Yeah? So, and there's even another one that says flying fiery serpents. So, that kind of also is like from the Bible here. Look, they like to always put these wings here on the graphic. Fiery flying serpents. Kind of amazing, isn't it? But remember, the devil had 1/3 of the angels. 1/3 went to the devil. So, we have the war. And they're fighting people, making people sick. Yeah? That's what happens sometimes. So, but Jesus is the answer, right? That's the problem. That's what's going to make a lot of people get better, but they will lose a lot of money, you know? They don't want people to know that Jesus is the answer, right? So, but Jesus talked about these kind of serpents as well. He said they would bite the believers and it won't harm us. He said you'll walk on them, you'll tread on them. But in those areas, they didn't have poisonous snakes, and some areas they didn't have any snakes. But it isn't talking just about getting bitten by poisonous or not poisonous snakes, because they understood something, and they had some things, some understanding, that basically had something very different altogether. So let us look at the scriptures for more information. I hope I have some question marks now starting to appear. The first of fiery serpents Moses had to deal with in the wilderness. It says they were sent by Yahweh to punish them for rebelling against him. And if I can turn quickly to Numbers chapter 21, we're going to go through a few verses in Numbers chapter 21. You might want to turn there. The second book, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. Fourth book. Numbers chapter 21, verse 6. First one. And Yahweh sent fiery serpents among the people and they bit the people, and much of the people of Israel died. Okay, fiery serpents. And we know that Moses prayed to Yahweh, and the people came and they repented. They came penitently. They said, please forgive us. And so they said, we will now listen. We're sorry, blah, blah, because they were being very bad. Okay? That's what we Christians all must do, is get on our knees. So sometimes, God will punish so that they will not go to hell. I mean, if he was doing all these miracles and got them out, and they do this to God's face, when they saw all these great miracles that God delivered them out of Egypt, and still they rebelled to God's face. And if we'll go to verse 8 and verse 9, and it says, And Yahweh said unto Moses, Take thee a fiery serpent, and set it on a pole. And it shall come to pass that every one that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live. And Moses made a serpent of brass, and put it on a pole. And it came to pass that if the serpent had bitten any man, if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, then he lived. So they get bitten. They're maybe going to die. They go look at this one that Yahweh said, put up this one, and they lived. So you see, there's something going on we don't understand, right? So we should go a little deeper. I think these don't sound like normal snakes to me. I think that's really something more to it. I think they were more like fiery snakes is more like subatomic, if lack for a better word, spiritual kind of snake. Yeah, and this goes back to ancient times in many ancient traditions. These traditions exist today in legends about dragons as well as snakes. Yahweh allowed this to happen to show the people in their pride that they were nothing without Yahweh. To turn against Yahweh after he so miraculously delivered them is a terrible, terrible thing to do. So, in his righteousness, he helped turn them around, and some of them cried out to God when they just did a very bad sin, and then here comes this big snake. So they had to say, okay, sorry God, because it's really when you've seen a big miracle happen, and then you say, oh, I hate God. Then if no big snake comes to bite you, then maybe God doesn't care. But if God really was trying to bring them to heaven, he will continue to call them. And if they're going to cross the line where they turn totally away from God and they become lost, and he stops them, that's what you'll find that in the traditions and things is that they will stop people. So that's something very interesting. But Moses' staff that he went to Egypt with also has this ancient secret. If you'll turn to Exodus chapter 4, verse 1 through 5. Second book. Exodus chapter 4, verses 1 through 5. We're going to I'll go and I'll read the whole thing. 1 through 5. And Moses answered and said, But behold, they won't believe me. They won't hearken to my voice. They will say, Yahweh hath not appeared unto thee. So he's saying, these people will never believe me. Why should I go to Egypt and talk to them? But Yahweh said unto him, What is in thine hand? And he said, A rod. So he was holding his rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. So he cast it on the ground, and that rod turned into a serpent. And Moses fled from before. He ran away. And Yahweh said to Moses, Put forth your hand and take it by the tail. So Moses comes and takes it by the tail. And then it became a rod again in his hand. They may believe that Yahweh, the Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob hath appeared unto thee. So believe me, now he has this crazy looking rod. I guess it looks like a snake too, probably. So when he goes into Egypt, the Egyptians, they had all these strange beliefs, right? They have their pyramids, they have their idols. And sometimes they believe in one God, sometimes they believe in many gods. But if he goes into Egypt with this staff, it looks probably a different color. I don't know. It probably looked maybe like a snake. I don't know. But a lot of it, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. We don't know. But he said, when you bring this, everyone's going to believe. And they're going to let you go through. But also he was the prince. He was sometime he was a prince of Egypt, so they had to listen to him a little bit, but now they had to listen to him more. So, but I wanted to say that in the ancient histories and teachings, many of the Celtic knotworks, the designs, they used to have on the old Bibles all these spirals that would go around the Bible, and because it symbolizes the wall, between that there's guardians who's going to try and stop you from going to heaven, or there's devil will try to stop you from reading the Bible, and it's in the teachings that there are sometimes war, sometimes a fight. You have to fight against the devil. You have to trample. You have to fight the dragons and walk on the serpents, and walk on the snakes. Sorry, trample the serpents, because serpents is a different word from snakes. I don't know if that will make much difference. You can fight them all if you want, but it says in Psalms 91 that you're going to only need to walk on the other ones, and the other ones you're going to need to bruise your heel on them or fight them or wrestle with them. But this is all spiritual. Okay. But the Celtic crosses often had on the cross weavings around them. There's here's a diagram of the crosses. I'll just take a look at what crosses that is common. Celtic knotworks are often around the crosses, mostly because the cross fights again, and it disrupts them, and it stops the snakes. It detracts them away. It sends them away most of the time. That's what it's talking about. And also because to go to heaven, it kind of goes like this. It kind of doesn't go. It's an understanding of in the Bible it talks about when the Spirit came, there was a tornado, like a whirlwind, and it was a loud noise. And then God came, and He came many times first with the world in a whirlwind. So that's another understanding about the spinning of the knotwork that they have. So I'll go to the next part here. But most of all, the Bible talks about the devil is one of those dragons, those serpents, and that he is a war against those who keep the commandments. It says in Revelation chapter 12, verse 17, it says, they who have the testimony of Jesus Christ and keep the commandments, that the devil is in a war against them. And it doesn't say if you only have the commandments, then the devil has a war. No, the devil is no problem. If they just keep the commandments, no problem. We only fight the ones who have both the commandments and the testimony of Jesus. Okay, so if they're teaching Christ, then they have war. But we can't stop the fact that we will walk on the serpents, because Jesus said, if you believe, you will walk on the serpents. You will you will trample them. So, the cross will make those devils afraid, because they know, because Jesus was slain from the foundation of the world. So the cross will always remind the devil, we lost the war. They think they could win one more battle, but they lost the war. And that God has won. Jesus has won the victory at the cross. And they don't want anyone to know that. And if you know Christ won the war, and you have a cross, because it helps you remember that Jesus won the victory, that's why we have the cross, is because when we have all of our problems, and we forget that Jesus won the victory, we just take a moment and remember the cross and go, oh, that's right, he is the victory, and your mind goes back still and peaceful. That's the best reason to look at the cross and remember the cross. But we know that the demonic does not like the cross. It has such an effect on destroying the serpents. It wounds, because he also wounded every evil spirit in hell. Okay? And especially when you are one who has chosen to follow after him like he did, and keep the commandments like he did. Yes, not the fake traditions, but actually keeping the spirit of the word and keeping it, like it says, the Sabbath is for healing. So when he would set people free on the Sabbath, they were angry, but he was keeping it better. He did the Sabbath the way it was supposed to be done. And so we have a good news. It says, it continues on about this war in Revelation 12. In verse 11 it says, we overcome the dragon, or the devil, by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. Well, we won't get it perfect. We don't do our works perfectly. Nobody can. But it says, by the word of our testimony, what we speak, we will get the victory over the devil by the blood of Jesus Christ and by speaking his word that he's given us. And he gives us the victory. It's all right there. If we will just acknowledge it and say it, and he gives us and he helps us along the way. So then it's a very great message of victory. These kinds of serpents that we're talking about here are definitely not what I'm sure people have thought of before. We're going to get into a little bit more material here. Mainly the understanding was to remind the devil he will be destroyed by the cross, as Christ was slain before the foundation of the world. Okay, foundation of the world means he went into heaven and went before the world was created, and he went back and he said, all right, I'm going to have mercy on everyone before they were born, and for the whole world, people who are going to go in the future and people in the past. And then they were able to come to heaven if they believed in the promise that the Messiah would come, because that's what he did. And so that's why these old cultures were able to figure it out. Well, they were Israelite cultures, most of these, and they got the traditions from Israel, and probably Adam passed down the knowledge the Messiah will come and he will bruise his heel on the serpent, and the serpent will get his head crushed. So I think that was really passed down very well, because you will find it's in so much knowledge of the mythologies, not only the Celtic and the Viking mythologies, it's in all different cultures around the world. The Israelites, it says, were scattered abroad to all over the world. And so they brought the truth that Jesus would come, and they brought the truth. This one here is a Gothic cross, one of the crosses, and they would also have crosses like this, many crosses, and that was way before Christ, maybe 500 BC. But the Goths are descendant of the Israelites. Almost every historian talks about that part. It's like a part of the eastern part of Poland today that they were Israelites all living there. And they had ancient crosses as well that were teaching them that they will one day have victory over the devil. One day have victory over serpents and over disease and over all the problems. Now remember, we don't want the medical people to know. They won't like this at all. We're teaching people how they can get well without their drugs. They want to sell those drugs. But Jesus is the answer, and he has the way for us all to be set free. So they knew that every year they had in Israel the Passover Lamb, and he also was impaled on a cross. And it would look like a cross. It had a pole and a crossbar. And they believed and they understood that he would come and to die on a cross. And so this was very well understood. Even in Egypt, they were trying to make, it says, Jesus said, many people came before me and claimed they were Christ, who came before him. Like in Egypt, there were even people who came, they weren't perfect like he was, but they came, and Jesus said those people were robbers. There's even a few different princes of Egypt who were crucified. And they even say that one of them rose from the dead, which I don't think really happened. But these Egyptians were, and Jesus said, there were many who came before me, but they are not the true ones, and they were robbers. They were robbers and liars. But he says they came around the side to try and lie. But he says, I come through the center, and I came with the truth. But yes, but this overall knotwork, understanding this knotwork, the understanding in most of the teachings, whether it's in Viking artwork or the Celtic, on the Bibles, they will write it on there, was that it was like a serpent that was biting his tail. So he was kind of like stuck halfway here and halfway there, like halfway between, there's 7 heavens in the Bible, okay? If you read the book of Enoch, there's 12 heavens. That book was in the Bible 100 years ago as a normal part of the Bible. 12 heavens, And Enoch talks about the different kind of beings and creatures that live in these different heavens. So one of those heavens, probably, that's sort of where those snakes, they go in and out, I think, or serpents, I should say, serpents. Because they're fiery serpents. So they're, if you're talking about fire on an animal, it's going to burn, right? But also Moses saw a bush that was on fire, right? And the bush didn't burn because the bush was like in heaven. And he said, this is holy ground, take off your shoes, right? So if you see a tree is on fire, probably you should take off your shoes, right? I think so. Because it's a problem. There's you cannot sit in a holy place and think that we can survive. It says no one can see God and live. But Moses had to be very careful. He was always on his knees. Very often you think Moses was prideful. No, it says much of the time he was on his knees. And he was praying for Israel to be saved. And God listened to him and heard his prayers. And so, we have such a great victory in him. It's just really an awesome topic and understanding to have. But this knotwork was part of the, as it says, Israel did cunning weaver. They had cunning weavers. So they actually were able to weave artwork and depict it this way. It says in the temple they had cherubim as well as artwork. Cherubim, there's a similar word of the cherubic. There's cherubim, which is angels, okay? There's different hierarchies of angels in the Bible. There's cherubim, there's seraphim, there's archangels, there's all these levels, right? Well, I was talking about how that 1/3 of the angels were cast out of heaven, right? And there probably are these serpents and dragons. that we have to fight. We have to go to war against them. And Jesus said there were some people who were descendants of the serpents. And he said, your genealogy of serpents. And he told them, and he wasn't afraid to say that. Some people were descendants, and that word for genealogy he used when talking about those evil, corrupt, wicked people who killed the priests, and they took the priest's place, and they were not related to Abraham, that they were actually descendants of Cain. And that's a whole other topic in itself, but we go now through the Hebrew and Greek because we see often that serpents is not a snake at all. It's the word in Hebrew, seraphim. So we're getting down to the bottom of it. Serpents is the word seraphim in Hebrew. It's Strong's number 8314, and I have a link on the article that has it, so you can compare. You can look every time the Hebrew word shows up in the whole Bible. There's only about 20 of them, I think, but you can go in there and you can look up every time it shows up. And you will see there's a dual meaning. There's different cherubic orders of angels. You will find that there are good ones and there are bad ones, right? There are higher angels and lower angels. But one example is in Isaiah 6, verse 2, a very interesting one where there are seraphims. So you'll find the word seraphim comes up in the Bible many times. And sometimes it's talking about just those bad serpents, and sometimes it's talking about the regular good angels, like in this verse. In Isaiah 6, verse 2, it says, and it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having coal in his hand, and took the tongs from the altar. So this one was even ministering at the altar. And it says there are cherubims who sing, holy, 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 before the throne of God in heaven. Cherubims and seraphims praising him all the time. So that's again talking about angels in the higher realms. But also there are Christians in that order, because it says that in their song, in Revelation, I believe it's chapter 5, verse 9, it says they all sing, God redeemed us by the blood of the Lamb. They're singing that Jesus redeemed them. So that couldn't be just angels. That must be talking about Christians, because Christians are redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. And so we have more information from our brother, Rev. Jeff Smith, and he showed more on this cherubic order that we're talking about here, one of the orders of the seraphims that are the Christian and the good side. And he gives the word epaneum, where that Jacob Israel promised to his 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and he blessed his 2 sons, who became the chosen 2 nations of Israel. And he said the word paneum, one will precede the other in the blessings. So one's going to become a great nation, he says, because God deals with kingdoms and nations. And then later, his other son will overtake him with all the promises that show who the true Israelites are in the earth. And you can look up who is fulfilling those promises in the Bible. And we have books on this, and it's quite interesting who is fulfilling those prophecies. But that word for paneim, of one brother preceding the other, and then finally he overtakes, is a kind of a spiraling. So there's a spiraling order of seraphim, where they are kind of, I think, in a spiritual sense, a part of the cherubic order that defines kind of how it works, how they get into heaven and how they get back to earth, and how they go back and forth from heaven to earth. And like Jacob, when he went and he slept on that stone, it says he saw the angels going on a ladder up to heaven and coming back down. And some believe that that was a spiraling ladder that went up and down. And that I believe, is some good research as well. But yes, sometimes these seraphim serpents are referring to a special force of punishing messengers. Okay? Punishing messengers who Yahweh created to punish the rebellious people like he did to the Israelites in the wilderness. We know that Satan was originally created before he fell from heaven. He was called an anointed cherub, and he was good. Most people just know that cherubim and seraphim are angels. However, some don't know there's dragons who now hold that title, because when they are kicked out of heaven, it says then they became corrupted. Then they became ugly, because when they were in heaven, they were beautiful. When they came down to earth, it says God made them look ugly, and and he did punish them, but also he uses them still today to punish people when they still have a job to do, because they were originally already his cherubim, because Satan also was in heaven. He was into music, right? He's also into being a judge. And so God made him a judge, but he's still fighting against God, but still God allows him to judge sometimes when, like, for example, Job. He said, you can punish Job, but don't take his life, right? And so the devil was able to put Job through a trial. And so sometimes he gets that kind of work, because sometimes when people are very bad, like Paul said, that there were people who were doing pedophilia in the church, and he said they have not heard of that, and even in the worst pagan countries, of them doing this to their children. And then Paul said, deliver that one to Satan for the destruction of his flesh. So sometimes they'll be punished in a bad way, but he said for the destruction of his flesh, that his soul might be saved. So then maybe when they're about ready to kill the pedophile, then he might ask God to forgive him, and then maybe he gets a chance to still go to heaven. But if they do nothing, his soul is lost. So, you see, we don't want everyone to be lost. But he had a chance when he saw that God is a righteous God who will not allow him to do that to children. You see. So, there are still those ones used to punish the rebellious, and Paul used that as saying, send them over. Send them to the devil so they can be killed. Or basically, I think he was saying we have to get ready to punish that guy for his bad sin. Because in the Bible there's national laws still to be followed. And in those days they still had a bit of the Israelite government going on. And here's some more verses on the seraphim. And tell me, do these sound like normal snakes to you? And it says in Isaiah 14, verse 29, it says, rejoice, thou whole Palestina, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. For out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and the fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent. So here you have the descendants of the serpents. It says is a fiery flying serpent. So we have not only a fiery serpent, but a fiery flying serpent. And is that something? That is really something. I got two more for you I don't think these sound like normal snakes, but Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 17 says, for behold, Yahweh says this, I will send serpents and cockatrices among you, which will not be charmed, and they shall bite you, saith Yahweh. Wait a minute, charmed? How can you charm a snake so he doesn't bite you? I don't understand how that works, but I just think that is another verse that's saying, these kind are going to bite you no matter what. But that's strange, because why would God say that? I'm going to send these to bite you. Serpents and cockatrices. Well, that cockatrices is, again, kind of like the snakes. That's a different word there for the snakes as well. But he's not going to let them. He's not going to let us have dominion over them. But remember, God said man has dominion over all the animals. So it's kind of a strange one where God can say, I'm going to send them over to you. It's even more strange when it says they're flying. Who's seen a flying snake? I've never seen a flying snake. And also, I've never seen a fiery flying snake. That's a bit bizarre to me. So, Luke chapter 10, verse 19, it says, Behold, I gave you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. So, they were given power. We are given power through Christ to tread over all the power of the enemy and all serpents and scorpions. Why would he take serpents and scorpions to talk about? Why doesn't he talk about bears? Or maybe they had lions or wolves or other animals, but why would he choose serpents? So I think, again, serpents is like a dragon, okay? It's really a war that goes back to the Bible times. And so if a dragon comes up over here, I'll just get my sword, don't worry. I have a big pull. I will kill him, don't worry. No. I don't mean to be loud or bold here, but no. These are animals. They existed. Our opening text was that Yahweh is still going to get a big, great, and strong sword, right? And he's going to slay the dragon that's in the sea. So when Yahweh comes down, he's going to get a big sword and he's going to go kill this big dragon. I didn't write it. That's not even talking about all the dragons. That's talking about one of them. There's a lot of dragons in the Bible, all different ones it talks about. So there must be some truth to those legends. For example, in Krakow, in Poland, they also have a legend of who is the guy who kills the dragon? Krak. Krak killed the dragon, right? Beowulf, you have the old money and the coins, and there's a guy killing the dragon. You have St. George. You have many people who are killing these animals. But these are animals like dinosaurs. They exist. They find the bones sometimes, and then they don't want anyone to find it. They take it away, and they throw it out or whatever. They put it in a special government place, or the United States comes and takes it. I don't know what. But they're really watching this information. But dinosaurs normally, they don't mind. But the rest of them, also giants, very tall people, they take the bones and they put them under and take them away, and always very quickly they take it. There's one in England that they or Ireland that they haven't taken. A very old skeleton. The guy is like taller than this house, and that one they still haven't taken away. So maybe not all of them, but yes. So yes, these are created creatures that were here and put here to punish God's people and to protect the different realms. The interesting thing, that word for when Adam and Eve had to leave the garden, it says that God put these cherubim with fiery swords to guard the area. But again, that word cherubim is used. So you have cherubim, seraphim. Those are the good angels who are before God most of the time. But that word, again, is still used to talk about these kind of, like Paul said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers, against principalities, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high places. So we're going to wrestle them. It says wrestle them like this, but maybe more in the spirit though. But maybe one day because they go like this. Maybe one day they will stop, and then we can kill them. Because it says one day, people, when they have no food, they're going to kill the serpents, who are the dragon. They're going to kill the leviathan. Okay? And it says that they will be food, and they will use it for weapons. They will they make it into helmets and armor and all sorts of things. And they will kill some really big ones. It's like bigger than this whole village. Very big ones, I think. And then to use the pieces, because it's very nutritious, I guess very healthy. And so it is also used for armor, because nothing can stop it, and it's very good for weapons. And so we know this doesn't sound like a normal snake. If it can fly, if it has fire, so we know they have a special task, but this isn't for everyone. So what was Jesus talking about, walking on serpents? I think it may be referring heavily to the unclean spirits, like Jesus said, was causing people to be ill. Let's look at some verses now that call them unclean spirits that cause diseases. So Matthew 8, verse 16, it says, "When even was come, they brought unto him many that were possessed with devils, and he cast out the spirits with his word, and healed all that were sick." And Matthew 10, verse 1, it says, "And when he called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits, to cast them out and heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease." So yes, they're connected. Casting out the evil spirits and healing all the disease. All the disease. So it doesn't matter what disease they had. They say they have many diseases and only this medicine works and that medicine. No, God can heal all the diseases. And he starts with getting out the unclean spirits. Remember, it says that the unclean spirits, when they're cast out, they go in dry places, and they're having, that's what they like, is dirty and dry. But we are more people who are clean. We like to get baptized. We like water, and we're going to be clean. Yeah? I believe in using holy water sometimes to help heal people, to help cleanse people, to drink water, to use water. It's a very biblical thing. To baptize and to use also anointing oil to anoint people in the name of Yahshua, and to have them be healed with oil. But yes, the medical symbol of the snake on a pole that we've seen, that snake on a pole, it seems to they know something, and they don't share it. A lot of people don't know what causes viruses. Actually, there is no virus that can be found in a microscope. They only can show what it does to the cells. They believe it's something fiery, yes. They basically are like these serpents that go in and out of the world. That's a virus. A virus is something that is like it's attached some way to an unclean spirit, and they take the energy of the people, and they use wounds, and they use blood, and they use things they take our energy. So this thing that causes viruses, they don't know what it is, but they give you more toxins, and they give you drugs, and they try to make you not think about the problem, but the problem doesn't really go away, but eventually your own body makes it go away, not the drug. So in the end, that they don't want people to know too much about, so they don't lose their money. Okay, that's a big industry, medical pharmakia industry. We've an article about this, about the ESA pharmakia industry, and people can find that on our website, christassembly.com. And so, yes, this is all something that has to do with the book of Enoch, with the 12 heavens and the 7 heavens in the Bible. The word heaven is normally heavens, plural, not just one heaven, but heavens. And so they don't want people to know how to defeat and get set free, how to defeat the devil, how to defeat the serpents, how to use the Word of God, and how to use, it says, the washing of the water of the Word, and to renew our lives daily. It says daily we take up our cross, and the cross destroys the devil, destroys disease. And so we just get a routine, and we do it, and we just recover, and nothing can stop us. We overcome the devil by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. So if we get in a good routine every morning and every evening, and remember, before we go do anything, we say prayers. Before we go to the store in the morning, before we go to work in the day, just say a quick prayer. Find a quiet place in your house and to say a quick prayer, like the Our Father prayer, and to get right with God, and then go start your day. And also when we go to bed at night, find in the evening, I think around sunset time is the best time. But you also have many prayers, like in our Book of Common Prayer, that you can use. That is very good. It's a whole complete service, because sometimes we're just not feeling well. But that's okay. God has grace, and then we can still say it perfectly. Because, okay, some people believe only in prayer without text. That's all fine. And they admit, though, that the text, maybe it is perfect, but they're also very gifted people. And we are also gifted. But still, God used set prayers. Jesus used set prayers. When they asked him what was the greatest commandment, he said, the Shema Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu Yahweh Echad, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. He gave the prayer that's the most used prayer in Israel and in every sanctuary in Israel. And he recited it. And that's the prayer that they would say every morning. Now you can say the Lord's Prayer as well, just as good. But yes, this topic is quite big, and we do have surrounding topics I've just touched on a little bit, and most of these you can find on our website and included in books that are coming out through our ministry. And you can look in our online archives. We have more than 300 teachings that are similar or have other topics that I've not mentioned here, that is meant to encourage the overcomers and to help us in our lives and in our walk in Christ, to help feed each other and to remember to pray for each other in our battle, with our battle that we have in this world, and the encouragement to pray for each other, like Paul said, all the time, to pray for each other. Help him, Father, and use them, Father, and restore them, Father, and you just pray all the time for all the saints. Just try to remember to do that. And that's part of what we're doing here today, but it's also part of our Sabbath service, and this is supplemental as a Sabbath service, because a lot of people don't have a Sabbath church nearby, and so you can use the MP3 program that we have, or you can join us live, and you can come in the chat room, and there's probably several questions in the chat room now. I will hope to be able to answer them next week. So if you have any questions, send them to minister@christassembly.com, and I'll endeavor next week at 4 o'clock Central European Time. I will try to answer all the questions, and if there's any more information that you would like, send an email to minister@christassembly.com, and we will be able to reach everyone. So that will conclude our sermon. We will now finish the rest of our Sabbath service. Yahweh bless you, and till next week. Bye-bye.